I'm blown away, honestly, for what it is. Hey everybody, welcome back to Experience Points, a less formal, more laid-back sort of video series where I talk about RPGs that I've played a bit of, but have not yet finished. And today, I'm taking a look at Seed of Pandora, Legend of the Gaia Tree. And this is a game that you probably have never heard of before, and if not, thank you for clicking on this video regardless. It means a lot to me, because this is a tiny studio. One person, Jamie, made this over the course of 5 years. Honestly, I think if you stuck me in a room for 5 years and saw what RPG I was able to put out, I would be very proud to be able to put something like this out. So anyways, we're taking a look at Seed of Pandora, Legend of the Gaia Tree. It is this really interesting kind of 16-bit throwback style RPG where you're following your dreams, but literally. The protagonist of the game, Sebastian, has these dreams at night that are very vivid and almost supernatural, and it hints at some sort of deeper destination that he needs to work towards to find out if this girl who's calling out to him in his dreams is real. And part of me loves this because it's a hook that you don't see too very often, but it's also a hook that I really loved in EarthBound. It is a very small, minor story beat in EarthBound. But in this game, it is like the driving force that sets our hero out for adventure. Not like the world is in, disarray and everything's about to come crashing down, at least not in the first few hours. I'm about 5.5 hours in so far. But the impetus is, I'm having some strange dreams. I wonder what's up. And he goes out on a journey with his best friend. And I like that. I like that a lot. So my initial impressions of Seed of Pandora's visual style and its presentation are that it does a pretty solid job of being an homage to that Super Nintendo 16-bit era of RPGs in more ways than one even. One of the things that I loved when I first started playing this game was the fact that it has that big open world map that you can trounce around on and cover great distances in short amount of time. It's definitely got that going on. Reminds me a lot of like Chrono Trigger, and I love that. But also the visual presentation inside of dungeons is also really nice. In combat, the backgrounds are beautiful in the dungeons themselves. The enemies are all visible on the field, which is really nice, and they all look nice. It's just really well done. The story and the characters, though, so far are also really interesting. So it starts off with, his best friend's coming back from being a mercenary for several years, and he needs some help with a little thing. And so he co-ops Sebastian into going on this goblin hunt for a little while, and so that's kind of how it all starts. And they've got this nice banter. There is banter, by the way, in the sense of like the Tales of games have banter every once in a while. The one thing that I did run into is that, as you see the banter appear on screen as you're walking around, if you happen to get into a combat encounter during that, the combat encounter interrupts that, and there's not really any way to see the remainder of what you missed, which is a little bit of a bummer, because I do really like that sort of way of giving more of the story as you go. One of the other really cool things about this game, it doesn't strictly stick to the 16-bit aesthetic. There are visual effects that obviously could never have been accomplished on a Super Nintendo, not just the widescreen support, but also like some of the visual flair, like the solar flare or lens flare that kind of occurs when you're on the beach, or certain kinds of shadow and shading that happens when you walk around. They've done a really nice job of just adding these little touches that make it not feel like a solo dev did this in 5 years in a cave with a box of scraps. It's actually it looks so much nicer than its weight class would indicate, I think. And as a result, it does definitely capture some of that 16-bit JRPG feel, and that extends also to the actual combat and exploration itself. The combat system feels very nice. It has a tech point system, which is, oh, I really like it. You gain TP by attacking and being attacked by enemies, but you can use those points as ways of like doing really cool, room clearing attacks and devastating attacks. And Also, if you're too low on TP or MP to do anything else, and you feel like just kind of speeding through combat, you can just hold down the attack button and it'll switch into auto mode, and fast forward, so it'll go through the game at double speed, which is just a really nice quality of life touch that obviously is a bit more recent than the Super Nintendo, unfortunately. So it has all these classic RPG isms that I really like, but then it also has some of those quality of life improvements from being a more modern produced game. Though I will say one of the things that about this game that does feel really retro is the bit of grindiness to the game. There is a lot of enemies. Fortunately, you can see them all within the dungeons themselves. So you don't have to run in and fight everything, but you could. And I'm one of those kinds of people who says, "Oh, if you can see an enemy on the world map, you need to go kill it." And so I did that for a while. Unfortunately, as soon as you leave an area and come back, they're all respawned, which it's fine because you might need to grind, but it's, I don't know. Part of me is just like, I wish that there were fewer enemies, but they gave more XP, because the dungeons are actually pretty lengthy and they are full of monsters. And even though there's no random encounters, you still will find yourself doing a lot of combat. And it feels like it's also pretty tricky. Some of those early enemies early on can wipe your entire party. Ask me how I know. So it's going to be one of those sorts of things where you have to take some pains in the early stages to make sure you can survive a few levels before you can really start relying on some of those awesome tech point abilities that you can then use a little later on. And every time you level up, also, you recover all of your HP and MP, which is also really nice. But it's one of those things where when you're gaining levels quickly through a lot of encounters, you can kind of rely on that as a crutch a little bit. And then the ways of healing yourself later on in the higher levels become fewer and further between. So you have to start strategizing a bit more. So the progression doesn't feel like a smooth line. There's bumps and crags. And it's something that I did eventually run into later on, where I was just like, okay, I cannot fight all of these enemies anymore. It's not sustainable. Because, you know, I'm running through all of my resources faster than I can make my way through the cave. So you will eventually, long story short, you'll have to avoid a lot of these encounters to make it through certain areas. So if you're one of those kinds of people who likes to kill everything, that's gonna bum you out a little bit. But it's really nice that you have the option. On the world map, though, there you won't see the enemies. There is, by the way, a world map. I love that. Really exemplifies the 16-bit era of RPGs. That's one thing that I just wish still stuck around all these years later. But yeah, in a lot of these ways, it captures that JRPG feel of the 16-bit era. And sometimes it's all in good ways. Sometimes it's got some of those rougher points. But that's this game in a nutshell. It feels sufficiently retro in a few different ways. Oh yeah, and on that world map, there are random encounters though. As far as like the game mechanics go for like the combat, I also really enjoy when you finish killing an area boss, those enemies will run away from you. Again, reminds me a lot of EarthBound. And if you bump into an enemy from behind, you get the green flash and you get an extra bonus round of attacks against enemies early on. I love that. It'd be really cool if it went that extra step further and just auto killed the enemy like EarthBound. But you know, you can't ask for too much. But that's some of my favorite EarthBound mechanics kind of showing up here, which I did not expect because I knew that this would be Xenogears inspired. I knew it would be Chrono Trigger inspired. There is a bit of that Chrono Trigger sort of area of effect for certain kinds of tech abilities. So, for instance, you can attack every enemy in a line, which is really nice. And so you can do AoE attacks that way, which is also just showing a little bit of that extra polish. There's also different abilities that allow you to decrease the enemy's defenses by like half. So that's been so crucial for some of these boss fights where, you know, it almost feels like I'm breaking the game, but you have to, because there's some synergistic moves like breaking the enemy and then using this all-out attack where that your best friend attacks like 4 times in a row. And you have to do that to get through some of these bosses. Anyways, it feels good. Now, I will say that I tried using the game on Steam Deck, but unfortunately, it'll run the game just fine, but it does run into bugs that crash the game from time to time. And I did talk to Jamie about this, Pandora Games. I did speak to them about this, and they are making fixing that a priority. So if you're at all interested in picking this up on Steam Deck, be sure to go check how it's doing. I don't suspect it'll have any trouble running this once those idiosyncrasies are addressed. And I think that you can already kind of get around some of these by switching the compatibility modes if you're a Steam Deck user. But as far as like the soundtrack and the audio design goes, it doesn't steal the show, but also it's background music. It doesn't get on my nerves. And I think that a lot of times that's all you can really ask. Now, one of the other cool things though is that this game does have voice acting. So you bet when you're using those tech points, those characters are absolutely shouting out their attack names, and I love it.
Rising Blade! All out!
The sound effects are solid. It's just neat. It's not the perfect, indie RPG. I'm definitely not grading this on the same scale that I would for like a game like Sea of Stars or Chained Echoes. This ain't that, guys. Obviously this ain't that, but for what it is, made by one person who's not a game designer necessarily, who was a web developer, and they just worked on this cool project for 5 years solid. I'm blown away, honestly. One of the things, though, that I will say unexpected is that this game has a very well put together quest system. I didn't expect this going in. The game has a main quest line, but also several side quests, and they're all tracked in your journal with little check boxes. So as you complete little things, they are checked off. So you can like keep track of what all of the balls are in the air that you're trying to juggle. I'm kind of blown away for what it is. There are some things that I wish that I could like improve here and there, like the banter system where the text kind of disappears if you get into a combat. I wish that there was some sort of maybe dialogue, like history, where you could kind of look through all of the recent messages that you got. That would be pretty nice. You could put that into the journal. That would be something I might improve. It also feels a lot like the healing spells and stuff don't scale with your character. Like, for instance, the basic heal ability that you get early in the game, it takes 15 MP and it restores 50 HP. Several levels down the road, you've got maybe 150 MP to work with, and maybe like 500 HP. So like healing yourself 10 times will use up all of your MP. So this is going to be one of those sorts of situations where the abilities that you have probably don't last very long, and you'll want to unlock new ones. And you can. That's the other thing. The abilities that you get throughout the game, you're not just getting them through leveling up. You actually have to go in and unlock them, which is nice. But if you forget to do it, then you're just not going to have the latest and greatest abilities. It feels maybe like they would have been better off if they had just been given to you at level up points. I think those sort of systems work really well when you have a lot of choices and you can build your character the way you want them to. But I don't feel like there's enough breadth of options to make unlocking them feel like you're getting choices. It just feels like you unlock them all as soon as you can, or if you forget to, then you're just missing out. That's just like one of the little improvements that I would probably recommend. So this game just came out today, today being February 6, 2025, and it's priced at $15 here on Steam. I hope that if this looks at all interesting to you, that you'll go check it out. I'll have a link in the description below so you can go wishlist this game. It's a little indie project that is really punching above its weight class, even for an indie project. And I think I'm going to go play some more when I'm done with this video. So anyways, I hope you've enjoyed today's rambling about this game. Don't treat it like it's Sea of Stars or Chained Echoes or anything. This is like one person who's just kind of figuring it out for themselves, and I admire the heck out of that. Go check this out, guys, if you're interested. I think it's a game that's got a lot of heart, and I hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you guys in the next video. By the way, my Lufia 2 review is currently up in early access for supporters of the channel. I hope you check it out if you get a chance. I hope to release it soon for everybody, as soon as I make sure that YouTube remembers that I exist. So anyways, I'll see you all in the next video. Have a great day, everybody.